Hi, this is Sarah Mikesell with the Pig Site, and today we're here with Dr. Daniel Gascho. He is a veterinarian with Four Star Veterinary Service and an owner of Swine Health Care Clinic in Mexico, Indiana. So thanks for being with us today, Daniel.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. We appreciate your time, and as you might see behind us, Daniel and I are at the Four Star Vet Conference, their pork industry conference. It's held annually. Again, this is, I think, our second year in Muncie, Indiana, so it's been great to be back. And you just closed out the conference for us and had the honor of being the last speaker, of course. And you took everybody back to the basics for vaccination. Can you share a few of the kind of tips and tricks that you shared with the audience today, Daniel?
Sure. My approach to vaccination was not necessarily to introduce us to some novel new technology. Vaccination is one of those boring, monotonous things
Right.
that everybody does all the time. And so when you do something so often, you kind of get in a rut and forget why you're doing it or how you should be doing it or the timing. And so it was generally just a refresher to everyone, the things that everybody does anyway, the timing and the handling of the products, and just to make sure if you're going to vaccinate, you're going to spend money on the product and you're going to take the time to do it, that you get a return on your investment and just don't waste your time. So.
Right. What are some of the top things that you would tell someone, no matter what they're vaccinating for? What are some of those tips and tricks that people really need to pay attention to?
The one thing they probably got tired of me saying today, as said 5 or more times, is don't kill the vaccine. And that might seem like common sense, but vaccines are unfortunately a little more finicky or fragile than we realize.
Right.
You store them in the refrigerator, and the refrigerator's a little bit too cold and they freeze. Now it's no good. Don't waste your time injecting that one. Refrigerator gets too warm. Now it's no good. Don't waste your time injecting that one. We have live vaccines, and we forget and we run medication at the same time as we run the vaccine. We actually kill the vaccine. And so all of this boils down to, if you expect a response from the vaccine, you have to handle the vaccine in a way to give it a chance to actually work. So don't kill your vaccine.
That was job number one today. And how does, is it really just knowing all of the variables that go with a vaccine to know how to handle it best? Because they're different, right? Every vaccine that you're probably giving is different.
You can always refer to the bottle, and that might sound like common sense, but literally every bottle tells you a range of temperature that it needs to be stored at, and the temperature you need to thaw it out at, and all of these details. But generally, if you have a vaccine that's intended to be refrigerated, everybody always remembers, we don't want it to get too hot. That's why we put it in the refrigerator. But they also forget that freezing is honestly probably more bad than getting too hot. If it gets frozen, it's immediately ruined. If you forget and you let it sit out in the sun, it's immediately ruined. And so, especially with maybe hired help or producers, nobody wants to waste any product. And so you think you're doing a good job, utilizing every last drop.
Right.
But what you got to stop and remind yourself is, if that literally has zero value, then don't even take the labor to go poke that into an animal, because it's not doing any good. And so as far as the specifics on individual vaccines, generally our frozen vaccines, that 35 to 45 degrees Fahrenheit range is pretty safe, but it's really the extremes. Don't freeze and don't get too hot. You'll be fine.
Good. Very good. And you mentioned talked a little bit about different types of vaccines, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's the live vaccines, and then there's kind of everything else. Is that the best way to describe it?
Most people are probably familiar with what we say live and killed, which maybe I'm getting a little overly technical. A lot of them actually aren't killed. They're, different technologies that are subunits or DNA and RNA vaccines and things like that aren't killed. But in a very broad sense, it's the live vaccines and then the not live vaccines. And they all have their own place. It's not one or the other.
Right.
One's better than the other. Certain ones are for certain scenarios. And I think the key thing is, and what I tried to reiterate today is, I wasn't there to tell you how to vaccinate your farm, because I can't do that unless I know the specifics of your farm. And so the main takeaway would be, whether you need to use live or you need to use killed or you need to use a subunit, and the timing and how many doses is specific to your farm.
Right.
And it's not a guess, and we don't want you to waste your money or your time or do something that's not going to do any good. And so if you're going to attempt to vaccinate for something, do your homework, do your planning so that you use the right one at the right time. Otherwise, it's lose-lose. You don't get any good out of it, and you also spent the time and money. So,
Yeah. What are some of the other key takeaways, Daniel, from the discussion that you offered up?
as I expected, at the end, I always get the questions of which vaccine is best, or
Right.
should I use this on my farm? And I'm afraid I gave a pretty wishy-washy answer on that, not because I'm afraid to commit to something, but it's just simply impossible to give a blanket recommendation. It's
Right.
not that simple. These are living animals. Every farm, every scenario is different. Every farm's goal is different. Maybe you own farrow to finish, and so your goal is to produce as many full value pigs to market as you can. And so maybe you might use a vaccine that makes them test differently at weaning, but it doesn't matter because you're keeping
Right.
them anyway. Versus if your business model is to only sell wean pigs, well, then you might not want to use a vaccine that makes a pig, test positive for a certain disease, even though it's the vaccine, because that just adds an extra layer of, confusion to explain
Right.
to someone this
Right.
is vaccine and not the disease. So
Right.
it all just boils down to it's very farm specific. Unfortunately, I wish it
Right.
was easier because I could just tell you what to do. But I guess the take-home message is don't wing it. I mean, you gotta. It's almost worse to just guess because either way, it's not going to get you the results you want. And in this way, you still spent a lot of effort and money. So if you're going to spend time and money to try and develop protocol, make sure it's specific to your farm and you do your homework ahead of time. So.
Very good. And you also kind of just walked through that. At the end, you also talked just about it's also a timing issue. And you talked about that with some specific vaccines that the timing of when you're giving them is sometimes not always ideal. Sometimes you can't get them in the animals early enough, right? I mean, there were some issues with timing as well.
Yeah, as a blanket statement, I mean, most of our vaccines, the pig is not going to generate a very strong immune response for at least 3 weeks after
Right.
we administer the vaccine. There are some exceptions, some even longer because we then need to booster it, and it's another 3 weeks after the second dose. But the thing to keep in mind is it's not instant. This is not an antibiotic. This is not a treatment. And so a lot of times it's easier said than done because maybe you didn't know the pigs were going to get this disease.
Right.
But if you do have the flexibility of timing, say the pigs will not get sick until I move them from the nursery to the finisher. They're 10, 11 weeks old. Well, if you know that, don't wait until the day you move them
Right.
to vaccinate them. That's easier for labor because you got to get in there and handle them all
Right.
anyway. But if you put the vaccine in the day they're exposed to the actual disease, it's too late because the disease will get in them very fast, days. The
Right.
vaccine's not working for 3 weeks.
Right.
And so not always possible because pigs and diseases don't read the book as to how we would like them to act. But if you have that flexibility, even if it's extra labor, you have to get that vaccine into them at least 3 weeks
Prior.
or more prior to when they will be exposed to this thing we're trying to prevent, or else it's just a waste of your time.
Right. And some of these I would think are at high stress area or high stress timing to begin with, right?
Yeah. And another one that is often forgot is weaning. So we wean pigs and the nursery may have disease in it, or maybe there's other pigs on the property that has PRRS or
Right.
flu or whatever it might be. And historically, we pretty much don't handle the pigs at all while they're on the sow. It's like the first time we're handling them is when we wean them, so we're going to vaccinate them. And so it's easy to forget that some of our vaccines are effective on a pretty young animal. And so,
Right.
yeah, you may not, if we're weaning a pig at 3 weeks old, I just said, I want the vaccine in them 3 weeks earlier. Well, that's birth. We're maybe not vaccinating at birth,
Right.
but it's not all or none. Like, instead of waiting till weaning, maybe just a week prior to weaning if you have
Right.
time to go through those pigs and vaccinate them then, because even that 1 week is still 1 week of immune
Right.
response prior to the disease. That's still going to have a benefit over waiting till weaning. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, it's extra labor, but you're going to get a lot better return on your investment of that vaccine if every day earlier prior to the challenge that you can get that vaccine into them is just 1 day earlier that it's had time to respond and the vaccine will actually work. So.
Very good. Hey, Daniel, thank you so much for all the information. I enjoyed your presentation as well. So thanks again.
Thank you.
This is Sarah Mikesell with the Pig Site.